We're going to talk about healthy boundaries today. So, thanks for joining me. I want to invite you to come on in and to click the subscribe button and the like button and to comment with your questions. And I'm hoping that we can answer some of your questions today and help you use your boundaries more wisely so that they become something that increases good, strong relationships instead of pushing them away. So let's get right to it. Also, if you are struggling with family boundaries, make sure you go to my website, eileencjones.com, and set up an Anointed to Soar session, and we will help you figure out where the root issue is that's keeping you from having healthy boundaries and how to use them, and even maybe some confused ideas you might have had in the past about what a boundary is. So, and also I've got the the month of December is a buy one, get one Anointed to Soar session. So if you set one up, you get a second one to either keep for yourself or to give to somebody else. So let's get right into it. We're going to talk about healthy boundaries today. So a boundary is healthy based on the motivation behind it and who sets it. Standards are not boundaries. Standards are predetermined rules that we will live by. They are not meant to be set for anyone but yourself and your family. So things like purity, modesty, daily choices, whether we forgive for this or not, whether we talk about that or not, those are all decisions we make for ourselves and our families. When someone else doesn't have the same standards that we do, sometimes we believe we're supposed to make boundaries to keep those people away, and that's where we sometimes become in error. The frustration, judgment, and unforgiveness that we hold rears its ugly head when we try to make others fit into our own choices and standards. Then that fosters rejection in those other people, and it causes broken relationships. We cannot control others' responses and choices. Of course, you can ask other people to respond in a way that doesn't cause you harm, but you cannot control whether they do or not. Your job is to know what choices you will make when others don't treat you the way you need to be treated. Will you keep giving a lot of chances? Will you give only one or two chances? That's a boundary. So then you choose what you will do when others cross that line, and if you know ahead of time how you'll handle each situation, then there's no need to blow up. No need to second guess or be confused because you've already planned your response and you just need to stick to your decision. An example is a family member who is maybe verbally abusive. You're going to plan what you're going to say, what you'll do, how many chances you give, and you also need to plan what you're going to do when that person changes. What do you do when they apologize and they start responding differently? How will you handle that in the future? So this isn't about controlling abuse. It's about how you're going to protect yourself from it. So a boundary in Scripture, though, is a protected territory. It's called a gabul. And it's given us to someone as an inheritance, and it signifies ownership. It's a commandment not to move your neighbor's boundary line. You can read about that in Deuteronomy 19:14. That boundary or territory was passed on to that person, and you're not to remove someone else's protected, enclosed, safe zone. It's a place of comfort and a place where you can worship as God told you to without threat. It's the protection that we inherit as God's children. So scripturally, when something would threaten the borders of a boundary, the people would need to build a fence or a wall. So fence is mibsar. That's the word mibsar, and it means stronghold or defended border or fence. So a stronghold was something that kept some things in and other things out. If the fence was continually threatened, then a wall had to be built. That word is koma, and it means joined to protection. The same word wall was what kept the waters back in the Red Sea. Psalm 18:29 uses this same word to say that with my God, I can leap over a wall. That means that by his strength and plan, I can overcome the barriers that have held me back. But could it also mean that through his plan of love, I can overcome walls that maybe I've built that I shouldn't have, or maybe other people have built? So have you built walls that have caused you to be divided from people that might need to be torn down? The world says we should put up boundaries to protect ourselves, but could it be that we've understood boundaries incorrectly? Maybe boundaries are supposed to be set by God, and He uses them to bring us peace and bring healing to relationships instead of rejection and division. Psalm 16, 5-9 tells us that God is the one who sets our boundary lines, and He sets them in pleasant places. He is the one who determines where our borders lie. When He is the initiator of a boundary, it is pleasant, delightful, full of His counsel, and will not be shaken. And you can read that in Psalm 16. But when we set a boundary that's motivated by keeping people out, because they've hurt our feelings in the past, they might hurt our feelings in the future, they aren't exactly like us, they aren't always nice to us, then we've effectively stopped all opportunity to minister to and see healed relationships. Now, sometimes we must keep people out because of the threat of harm. In that case, you must build a boundary for safety. But most boundaries are made for other reasons. So here are some questions to ask yourself to see if a boundary is good. Is it pleasant or is it stressful? Does it increase my faith and strengthen my relationship with God? Do I hear His voice more? Or does He seem silent when this boundary is in place? Am I tossed around by this boundary? Or does it bring peace and order? Is it necessary for my safety? Will it lead others to God's best for them? And am I doing it selfishly, or am I doing it to bless and heal? Because boundaries are not about controlling other people's behavior. That's not your job. You oversee your own behavior. Scriptural boundaries aren't to cause rejection, shame, or punishment. In fact, if you have done that to someone else, then you haven't built a boundary. You've just broken relationships. Because boundaries are about protection and not rejection. All right, so let me know if you've built good, healthy boundaries. Are your boundaries healthy? Did you put them up by the wrong motivation? Do you have some boundaries you might need to move? Do you have some situations in your life that might need to change? Do you have some relationships that might need to be healed? Maybe you've built some fences and walls that need to come down, or maybe you're in a situation where some fences or walls need to go up for your safety. All right, so we're going to talk tomorrow more about boundaries and how to set them specifically, good, healthy, strong boundaries that are going to bring strength to you and not bring broken relationships.